The talk is called Why Animators Will Love Houdini. If not right now, then eventually. I mean really soon. And I promise it will be really good. So Apex and this whole new rigging and animation thing is still in beta, but it's already really solid and it's on a good pace to be like a super solid rigging and animation interface. And we're really excited about that because we ultimately want to make everything in Houdini like everyone else, right? That's what we all want. So I'll just share like a little reel, talk about the project called Turbulence that we're doing together with Christopher Rutledge, is right here, my man. And then Jesper would talk about his journey from another software to Houdini and how it is to animate in Houdini. I'll do a little demo at the end and then Q&A. And then I'll remind everybody to download Kahoot again. So yeah, we're from a studio called Tumblehead. We're a small studio based in Denmark, right here. And we like to do 3D, 2D, 2.5 3D, I don't know what to call it, characters, cartoony stuff. And yeah, about a year ago, Chris approached us and said, hey, let's do a film together. And how can you say no to that? So it's beautiful, man. So yeah, before I start, I just want to show like a mixed reel of Tumblehead and Christopher Rutledge. Let's see if there is any sound. I need to play. Yeah, that. Thank you so much. All the cool shots were from Chris, obviously. So yeah, as I said, about a year ago, Chris approached us and said, "Hey, I have this idea for a short film about experience of turbulence when you're in an airplane." I said, "Yeah, Chris, really brilliant idea." And then he pitched us the story, and I just thought it was really funny, so we had to do that. And he had this idea to pitch it to CFX, and I thought they would say it no, the blink of an eye, but lo and behold, with Chris's charm and and pitch deck, they wanted to support the project, which is awesome, and we did all of the production in Houdini, maybe except for a bit of ZBrush stuff, but apart from that, like 99% in Houdini, which was really cool, using the latest. We started with the alpha of Houdini 20, and now we've been using the beta of 20.5. It's been really exciting. So I will show you the sneak peek for the film we're doing. This is very much a work in progress. Some of you might have seen it yesterday at the launch. The full film is about 3 minutes. We hope to finish it in September. So yeah, but this is a work in progress that we have right now.
This is your captain speaking. Just wanted to flag that we may be experiencing some turbulence shortly. We'll do our best to keep it down to a minimum, but we would appreciate everyone keeping their seatbelts fastened at this time, and we thank you in advance for your cooperation.
Oh, sorry. Is this normal?
Oh yeah, this is totally normal.
Are you sure? How do you know that?
Yeah, so basically my uncle, who's like this super experienced pilot, told me that the chances of a turbulence-related accident, it's actually crazy rare. It's all about like aerodynamics and thermodynamics and even with turbulence like this, like it's probably really, really unlikely that the plane would crash.
Yeah, you're right. I'm fine. Flight attendants do this all the time. I'm pretty sure they'd be freaking out if there was a problem.
Water.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so there's more to come. There might be a little bit more turbulence in the second half. It has been really fun. Like we rigged everything with KineFX/Apex and used the new scene animate to animate everything. Chris been dabbling a lot with the new Copernicus stuff, doing the like wet map and solver stuff with cops, and yeah, and everything done in Solaris, obviously rendered with Karma, even though this is like a low sample render. So yeah, that's been really fun. So after we pitched the project to Side Effects, we met up with Esther. And she talked about this new thing called Apex. So that's been quite the learning curve and very, very interesting. I wish we would have had all the cool tools that were presented yesterday when we started. So, but yeah, we spent about 6 months building like an auto rigger with Apex. So we have our own custom thing. Like a whole Python module that you can, and you have one HDA that kind of builds the whole rig based on an input skeleton. So that will be shared on the content library, and we'll have some more videos about that. So yeah, we managed to, oh, this is a fun fact because Tim is actually here. Tim van Helsdingen. Oh, yeah. Yes. Right. So you see the lattice on the right side. No, it's actually right here when you move this controller, because there wasn't a lattice in Apex at the time. I went on YouTube to find a Vex way of making a lattice deformer, and Tim's video showed up. So thank you. Yeah, and it works. So I took exactly your setup from subs and put it into Apex. Yeah. So thanks for that. I also had a talk at FMX about rigging. So there's about a small hour about purely rigging, so you're interested in that, please have a look at that. And actually last week me and Chris presented in Aniseed, so that was nice. So that was about the project itself and touched a little bit on every part of the production. So yeah, I think that will be online at the same time as this talk, so check that out as well. And here are a few other guys from the Tumblehead team. And there is one guy in particular that's really nice, and that's Jesper. Oh, yeah. So Jesper, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Magnus, and thank you for the last slide. That was really nice. Yes. So my name is Jesper, and I'm working as an animator and as a generalist at Tumblehead, together with Magnus, obviously, and a bunch of other really cool people. And I want to talk today about how to do character animation in Houdini. But before I do that, I have a little disclaimer, because I think probably most of the people in this room know way more about Houdini than I do. I'm an animator, and I think a lot of animators can relate to not being the most technical. You kind of just want your animation software to do what it's supposed to do, so that you can focus on all the animation technical stuff. So before getting into Houdini, like I had never touched on notes before, never done any scripting or coding, anything like this. Then about a year and a half ago, we were doing this project called Freelance together with this guy called Luciano Munoz. And we were going to do everything in Houdini except for animation and modeling. So we were doing like cameras and lights and look dev and rendering and everything. And at first it was, a little overwhelming with all this like, how to connect this and there. But I think like slowly I kind of got the gist of it to the point where I could I could follow a recipe basically, but definitely not to the point where I could play around and just have fun with the notes. Then recently we started doing Turbulence, and this time we were going to do everything in Houdini, including the animation. So I was going to use these new animation tools, and obviously since they're new, there's not a lot of tutorials online on how to do stuff. So I just thought, oh no, am I going to have to use a bunch of notes in order to get some animation done? Well, luckily, you don't need to be a Houdini expert in order to animate in Houdini. So yeah, I think the point of this talk today is going to be like from just a very normal animator coming from traditional animation software. I'm going to show you that there's actually not a lot to be afraid of. Okay. So, animating in Houdini. At first, I want to talk a bit about how we structure our scenes. So here we have in the stage, we have all our shots set up in the same Houdini file. So up here, at first, we have the model coming in of the airplane, and we have a light underneath. Then that goes down into each shot. So each one of these like long rectangles is a shot. So if we just go a little closer to one, here we'll see that we have our camera coming in, and we have a camera edit. And we can just pop into the camera to see our view. And then this node down here, that is where the animation happens. So you'll see there's already something there when I set my view to it. It's moving, yay. Okay, so let's pop into this and see what's actually happening. So the first thing we have is our rig loader that Magnus has made a really nice HGA that makes it easy to load in the rigs that we need for the specific shot. So you'll see that we have a list of all the characters. We can just check the little box, and they're gonna pop into our scene. Next to it, there's a little version thing, so we can pick our versions too. And the node underneath, this is our scene animate. So if we set the view to this, we'll see that our characters automatically pop into their posing. And you'll notice that this looks very familiar. You have your timeline with your keys on, just like you're probably used to in other software. So like this is not a new feature, obviously, of Houdini, but just to say that this is very generalized. We have a graph editor here. It's really easy to navigate around in. And you can select individual channels, obviously. And you can also search by channel. Just select all the translation. You get them like that. You can also split your view if you don't want it to be all on top of each other. You can have them side by side like this. And then you'll notice when I play back, there's a little down in the corner here. We have a frame rate count showing that we're real time. And then we have over here a channel box, which is really useful. And you'll see when we go on a specific key, some of the channels turn green, indicating there's a key on it. We also have this little broomstick here that wipes everything. It's really useful. And you can middle mouse drag to get that extra precision when you want to take care of your values. So yeah, all in all, like this, I'm sure a lot of animators will find this very intuitive. So let's set up a shot and get ready for animation. So here we have a shot that's already been posed. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I want to be able to, of course, see my camera view next to it. So I'm gonna bring out a new window here and just set the camera. And there we have that. And now I want to set up my selection sets. So selection sets is a really cool way to kind of manage what you see in the scene, or you can use it for selections too. I've already made some selection sets here for Jimmy. That's the guy with the yellow hair. So you see, you can use this to turn off the controllers. You can turn off the characters that you don't need in the scene. Turn off just geometry if that's what you want. So I'm just going to turn off everything but Jimmy, because that's the person I'll be working on here. And then I've made like a selection set here for his eyes, so it's easy for me to just select his eyes. I can also turn that off and then select everything but the eyes. Yeah, also useful to have one for just the eyelids in this specific case, his arms. Here's some spine action. Okay, so let's try to make a new selection set here. So I want one for his mouth, so I have control of that. So I'm going to select all the controllers that I think I'm going to be using when animating his mouth. That should be about it. I'm just going to right click and say create set from selected. Going to name this one Jimmy mouth. And there we have a selection set. So maybe I realize that one of the controllers doesn't belong in this selection set, so I'm just going to click that and right-click the selection set and then remove it. And it's just as easy getting another controller in there. Like this one is probably for the mouth. I'll go in there and say add selected.
Hey.
Yeah. So that is selection sets.
Yep.
So posing. So whenever posing, this is something really useful that I've been using a lot. So what you've seen so far has been very much like what you're probably used to from other software. But here's one thing that kind of sets Houdini apart in a really nice way compared to other softwares, is that when you're posing, you see that this cup is not constrained to the hand. And maybe I don't want to bother with constraints just yet, because I'm in the posing stage. But there's this really cool function where you pick your two controllers that you want to move, and then you hold down Control Shift, and now you can move those two together, just like that, without the need of any constraints. So I find that extremely useful when doing my initial posing, and you see there's still no constraint. And this works with any controller in the scene, so you can also have this set of chairs pivoting around her hand if that's what you want. Yeah, she's strong.
The key chair?
Yes, yeah, I put a key on the chairs too. Yeah, but then you'll see, once I have my two keys, you'll see there's going to be sliding, right? Because the arm is sort of rotating around the shoulder and the cup is just translating. So if you still don't want to bother with having to do actual constraints, what you do here is basically just put in some, I'm just going to delete this key, and you put in some more keys along the way to kind of minimize that. And this is something I've done a lot because, you know, bothering with constraints is usually such a pain. You know, you have to turn it on here and turn it off there and do all this kind of stuff. But fun thing is, it's not a pain in Houdini, actually. So that brings me on to the next thing I'm going to talk about, is something that they have named transient constraints. So here we have the flight attendant, and I want her basically to raise the cup in one hand, pass it over to the other hand, just like that. So first we're going to bring the cup into position. So roughly something like that. Then I'm going to select the driven first, then the driver. Select my frame range on the time slider, and then just hit A. And now we have a constraint to this hand. Okay, so you'll also notice down on the timeline that everything has been baked to once right now. That's because it was set to dense over here. You can also set it to update instead. In this case, it's just gonna make it follow to the next key that was already there. So just try that with the other hand. So you select on the time slider, we hit A, and now we have a constraint, but you see the cup is sliding. Like it's still following, and this might be good enough just for this initial posing for sure. But if we want to get rid of the sliding, we just we easily just select it again here and set this one to dense instead. We hit A, and here we go. Now there's no sliding. But you'll notice that the cup is not really matching up with the hand over here. So the nice thing about transient constraints is that it remembers your position throughout the keys. So I can just move the cup, and now it updates the position for all the other keys. Just like that. Maybe just rotate the hand a bit, make it nice. Alright, but now we have another problem, because now the cup is popping over to the other hand when the constraint switches. So they made a really nice fix for this. You see over here, we have something called set offset. So we just go back. What was it called exactly? It's a long name. Set offset to match frame before current constraint range. So basically it matches up to wherever the cup was last by the click of one button, right? So here we go. And the cup is not popping anymore. Now we have a different issue with the other hand, that we kind of have this gap, right? And of course the cup is constrained, so if you move the hand, the cup will follow. But if you hold down Shift and A at the same time, we can move that hand and still preserve the constraints. Just like that. Yeah, I'm just gonna cut that key to... And there we have a nicely working constraint, and it's easy to edit. You can easily adjust where in the timeline the one constraint ends and the other begins. So, animation layers. Now I've gone ahead and put the constraints on an animation layer. So this is also something that's really nice, that the constraints work on layers. So I've made a constraint layer up here. And you can see we can turn it off like this. Of course we have nothing. And turn it back on. And we can have like kind of a a little middle thing if we want half a constraint. Okay, so let's try to make a new animation layer here. So I'm just gonna select the head controllers here, and then create layer from selected controls. We can easily add other controllers to the layers as well, like this. Let's put some keys on here and make a little head wobble. All right. Then we go ahead and make another layer just to demonstrate how they blend together. So you'll notice that it's set to additive right now, which means that when we put another key here and push our head forward, that's going to add on top of the existing animation. Of course, we also have the ability to change that to override instead. So now it's overriding all the other animation. We can do a mix as well. So yeah, this is all something that you're probably familiar with in other programs, but it's working really well in Houdini, and it's a really nice integration. Okay, now comes a really fun part. So I'm just going to go ahead here and put down my keys for this shot. So here we have it. On the time slider, you can see there is our first initial pose. There's a breakdown. There's a little overshoot, and finally we have a settle. So you're probably used to in other software that you have to get a plugin if you want that extra nice control with sliders and everything. But that's built into this version of the Houdini Animate. So you have this little toggle down here that brings up these options, and you have a lot of things here. I haven't touched on all of them, but I'm just going to show you what some of the ones I use all the time, what they do. But you have like blend to neighbor, blend to frame, an easing, a push and pull. Okay, so here, like, I probably want him to kind of ease into that squash there. So for that, I'm gonna use the blend to neighbor one and just push it towards that first frame. Go, and then for this one, I think I probably want him to squash it a little more actually on that one. So for that, I can use the push and pull one. And you will notice in the graph editor, as I'm doing that, you can see the channels are changing. So we're pushing that pose a little further. We're just gonna move my keys around a little bit. I'm gonna blend to the next frame to get that nice spring effect up into his overshoot. And yeah, and I'm basically gonna keep doing this until I'm sort of satisfied with the timing of the whole thing. So here we have something where at this point I'm satisfied with the timing of it, but there's some weird rotation going on with his head that I want to go in and fix. You see there's a little rotation there. So for this, I'm just gonna go to my selection set, select everything that might have a Y rotation on it. I'm gonna isolate that in the graph editor. And now we can see where the problem is. And of course you can select your key and move it around like this, but you also have the option for different kinds of manipulators in the graph editor. And I'll show you that now. Yeah, so that looks a lot better now. If I were to if I wanted him to not move as much, you know, you can have your normal selection like this and just drag the keys around, but you also have this box selection tool that is really useful because it makes you able to just scale your keys like this. There's also one where you decide where the pivot is. And this is something that I use all the time because it's really useful to be able to just put that wherever you want it and then scale the whole thing from there. So just like this, we can make him not turn as much. And you can, of course, also scale these keys in the time direction. You'll see they just scale on the timeline. Yep, so that is pretty much the sliders that I think is a really useful tool to kind of get that first pass on your timing. Now this is an even funner thing. Skeleton deformers. So if you just go ahead, now I'm just gonna go ahead and key animate the whole thing until I'm sort of satisfied. And now we have something like this. And this has been animated like completely traditional, just with keys. But of course this is Houdini, so we might as well take advantage of some of the extra cool tools that we have. So I'm gonna drop down a note. So this is an HGA that Magnus has made. I'm gonna click that and I'm gonna select Jimmy. Let's just set our viewer state so we can see what it's doing to him. And then we can jump into this joint deformation. And what you see here is we have this Jiggle deformer that goes in his joints. So I'll just turn it on in the blend shape node. And when I hit play, this is what we have.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny, but maybe it's a bit much. Luckily we have some parameters here that we can change. So we have the stiffness. I think we want some more stiffness. That's a little nicer to look at. You have a bunch of other parameters too that you can, like damping and limit, multiplier. Then over here we have another node, which is a noise node. So let's try to pop that into it. The noise node is really good for, like, maybe you want him to have a shake, or maybe you want him to just have some keep alive. Now we pop this in, and it's not exactly what we wanted. Let's go back here and tweak the parameters. So if we change the amplitude, you can make it a lot worse. Maybe this is what you want when you have turbulence. We can also make him look very scared. But for now, I think I just want like a subtle keep alive. So let's change the pulse direction here. Duration, sorry. To make it a little slower, and then the element size to just have that overall wobble on him. So now I think that looks a lot nicer. And might still be a bit much, but we can go into our blend shape here and just turn it down, and we can mix between all kinds of different joint deformers to get the exact result that we're looking for. We can also isolate certain joints, only have the wobble on the eyes. There's a lot of playing around with that. So let's just delete this and pop down a even better node, because Magnus has made one that just is perfect for me. I drop down this. So this one does the same thing, but all the parameters are just kind of what we're already looking for this short film. So it makes it a lot easier to just pop down this node and then enable CFX. And then you'll see that we very quickly have that subtle wobble that we're kind of choosing as our style for this movie. If we pop it down into the rest, we can see how it looks like in the entire shot. Yeah. So you can totally put this jiggle on top of a completely finished key animation if you want to. But where it gets really cool, I think, is when you put it on something unfinished and kind of say, that's it, we're done. So of course this is a stylistic choice, but for this movie, like, instead of, because on other movies that we've done before, it's been very hand animated jiggle all the time. So for this, we might as well just go in and drop down this note. So here we have a shot with Mike talking, and you'll see that he's animated right now on stepped. And basically I've just tried to hit all his accents in his monologue here, and try to get the overall.
Yeah, so basically my uncle, who's like this super experienced pilot, told me that the chances of a turbulence-related accident, it's actually crazy rare. It's all about like aerodynamics and thermodynamics, and even with turbulence like this, like it's probably really, really unlikely that the plane would crash.
Yeah, so as you can see, like, you wouldn't call this done unless that's the style you're going for, like this kind of stop motion style. But from here, it would take hours to finish and get nice and get that little soft jiggle and everything. But let's just go ahead and try to drop down that note from before and see what happens.
Yeah, so basically my uncle, who's like this super experienced pilot, told me that the chances of a turbulence-related accident, it's actually crazy rare. It's all about like aerodynamics and thermodynamics, and even with turbulence like this, like it's probably really, really unlikely that the plane would crash.
Yeah, so I think we're just gonna call that done for now. Of course, you can always go in, and it's also quite fun to go back and forth and tweak and see what it looks like with the jiggle.
Yeah, so basically my uncle, who's like this super experienced pilot, told me that the chances of a turbulence-related accident, it's actually crazy rare. It's all about like aerodynamics and thermodynamics, and even with turbulence like this, like it's probably really, really unlikely that the plane would crash.
And then from here, all you have to do is pass it on to all those look dev geniuses. They slap some lighting on, make it a little nice, and then we're gonna get that result.
Is this normal?
Oh yeah, this is totally normal.
Are you sure? How do you know that?
Yeah, so basically my uncle, who's like this super experienced pilot, told me that the chances of a turbulence-related accident, it's actually crazy rare. It's all about like aerodynamics and thermodynamics, and even with turbulence like this, like it's probably really, really unlikely that the plane would crash.
There we go. Okay, and there's no more sounds from here, just so you know. Okay, so now I want to talk a bit about the Flipbook that I've been using all the time when animating. So when you're out in your stage again and you have put all this jiggle effect on, you will notice that at some point it starts getting a little slow. You're not going to have the real-time playback anymore because it has to cache all this stuff. But we have this little button down here that opens up M-Play and gives you a play blast of the stuff that you have. And so this is slightly different from a normal play blast, because if I choose to go in and just change a few frames that I think aren't working, let's say I just want to export only like 15 frames, then I just go in and I set my my frame range. So let's say 315 to 330. And we just hit start. And then now it's only gonna export those frames and put it back into the in-play. So I don't have to sit and wait for the whole thing to export. So yeah, that's really useful. All right. The next thing that I want to talk about that is also making my life as an animator a much easier is the fact that we have a render view. So right now I set to Houdini GL, but I'm going to set it to the Karma XPU, which is insanely fast. So right now on this window, I have the ability to see all my lights and shadows. Now at this point, we don't have extra what's that called, textures and stuff, but if we had, it would also show up here. But as you can see, like I can change my animation and it very quickly updates in the view. You can also just move the camera around. You see how it's almost instantly, you can see how it looks in the shot. So I feel like that's really useful, especially with this kind of stylized characters where you have these big eyes and sometimes some heavy shadows and stuff. It's really nice to be able to go in and kind of design that whole thing a bit more. Of course, you can move around the lights too, if you wish. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much what I had to say about animating. And like obviously I'm still very new in Houdini and there's a ton of ways to do things and I'm learning new things about it every day. Yeah, I think back to you again, Magnus.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesper. Awesome stuff. Yeah, so to round off, I want to show the CFX workflow that we did for Turbulence. And in this case, to solve like some intersection stuff with the head of Mike and add some even more wobbliness and jiggle. So here you can see that we have some intersection right after the animation. And why not use, for example, Vellum to fix that and automatically get some fun wobbliness on top of Jesper's awesome animation. So we use the SOP modify in Solaris and get the geo that you want to sim, use the short for collision, and then we use something called a TET embed to put these points inside of the geo. That is really nice type of vellum constraint setup. That is really nice for this type of sim, cartoony characters. Also, you don't want the corners and the mouth and stuff to follow too much the simulation, because then it won't match the lip-synced animation. So we're making a mask. So the red part, top of the head and the lips are following the animation 100%. And then you can see the gradient going over to be more and more just following the vellum sim. So when you have that, you plot down your vellum solver and the constraints, and you try with some settings, and it's perfect the first time around. Okay, maybe you tweak it a little bit more. Now it looks a little bit gross, but still fun. So maybe maybe we should tone it down a little bit. I kind of regret we didn't go with that, actually. So yeah. Try one more time, and now I feel we're getting to a point where it's subtle, but still wobbly and fun. And it solved all the intersection stuff as well. And this is totally ripped off Christopher's YouTube tutorial. So if you want to do some effects like that, be sure to check that out on his YouTube channel. So here you have Mike with his new lovely wobble. And you can see the same shot again now with the added CFX. There will be audio on this, though, so you're warned.
Oh yeah, this is totally normal.
Are you sure? How do you know that?
Yeah, so basically my uncle, who's like this super experienced pilot, told me that the chances of a turbulence-related accident, it's actually crazy rare. It's all about like aerodynamics and thermodynamics, and even with turbulence like this, like it's probably really unlikely that the plane would crash.
Yeah, so a subtle effect, but you only have to set it up once, and then it works. That's cool. Yes, so to round it off, I wanted to mention a few things that we really loved about working animating in Houdini. And obviously the rigs are evaluating incredibly fast. So already there, that's enough for me. I'm never going back to anything else. Also, the scene animate, which is the HDA, is very like animator safe, so to speak. I'm used to in other softwares that some shots and rigs break, and it's like, this is not working anymore, and the scene is corrupted, and there's been some keys on a constraint, or maybe some of you know about that. This is, you can only set keys on stuff that are supposed to be keyed, which is very good. Selection sets that Jesper showed, awesome. Animation layers. The KineFX/Apex rigging setup itself is amazing for riggers. If you're a rigger, you will absolutely love it. So that in return, hopefully, will produce a lot of really cool and interesting rigs. Then it's all in one software. Like we're doing 99% of everything in Houdini. It makes so much easier with pipeline, no plugins, extra licenses, all of that. And then you have all the tools from Houdini available to you. As you saw that we did some chop stuff that Jesper showed with the skeleton deform. And so you can do anything. Chris did a lot with Copernicus, with the wet map stuff, doing animated textures procedurally. And here are some things we are looking forward to that is coming. And even faster rig evaluation, which is awesome. So more of the deformers being rewritten to OpenCL. There is already a post library in Houdini, but it's not working with Apex yet. I think that's coming soon. The same with the picker. And even better Vulkan viewport, where you get even better shadows and stuff directly in the real-time viewport. And then there have been hints from Kristin about some even better collaboration with Solaris. So I'm not sure how that's going to look like, but that is very welcomed. We're looking forward to that. And lastly, we did this Jiggle stuff in that HDA that Jesper showed. But ultimately, I think that you will be able to do all of those kind of animation effects directly in the scene animate. So you don't have to go to an extra node and set that up. You can do it directly in the rig, basically. So that's going to be really awesome. And then a reminder to download Kahoot. It's going to be a really fun quiz afterwards. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah.
Let's see. Hi, great presentation. I'm just wondering, in terms of with the animation workflow and working across a sequence, with multiple shots and all that, multiple cameras, was there anything you guys experienced or thought was very good or problematic?
Like in terms of working with having several shots, you mean, in the scene and having one sequence?
Yeah, maybe things like double cuts or stuff like that, or perhaps things where a character needs to be in one position for one shot, and then the framing for the next shot needs to be kind of very different. Or
that would be a really nice feature to have in the future. That you maybe could have some kind of automatic hookup between the shots. But I think the advantage of having everything in one scene file is that whenever I was hooking up one shot to another, I just took that scene animate from one of our shots, put it next to the new shot inside of the other animation node, and then I could just select the pose and bring it over.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But we're looking forward to the what's it called, post library and stuff.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Hi, hello. Thank you very much for the sharing. I'm an animator. I'm totally new to Houdini. This is probably the first time I've heard everything about it. I have a question about the animation part. Because in animation, we will always have some minor adjustment for the shape keys for the especially for the joints and the wrinkles. Is there any specialties in Houdini or or is there any restraint in this part? Thanks.
I think that's probably more a you question.
Yeah, I'll try without the mic, but yeah, there.
Just one. Get it on the video.
Okay, thank you. So just to get your question right, you asked about like wrinkles and effects and stuff directly in the scene animate, correct?
There's more like the minor adjustment at the end of the animation, because usually when we fold something or there's like in the joints, there's always like minor adjustment maybe.
Yeah, like little tweaks.
Yeah.
Repeats stuff.
Yes, so you're talking about final tweaks on not just animation, as far as I understand, but also on the CFX, for example, folding clothes and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's not super practical, I think, to set that up directly in the rig if it's like a cloth sim that you need to fix. But there is this really cool sculpt node that Fiona showed earlier, and that has shot sculpting already built in, so you can actually sculpt on animation and your changes will stick, which is just crazy and it's really fast. So I would recommend checking that out. Yeah.
Looks really cool. I'm just wondering, because everything seems to live in this scene, like all the shots are separately laid out. Can you play them all back to back, like check continuity and all that, or is there sort of a playback option for that?
I think you could, with the in-play, you could kind of export them in order. I would think, but I don't know if there's a better way to do that.
That was smart. So what we usually do is that we didn't do for this project for some reason, but we usually just have a node at the bottom with a merge, and then you have a time shift for each shot that just shifts the shots so they are in. You can play them in succession, so that makes it really easy. There's just so many new things we had to set up for this, and I never got to set up that HDA for Jesper, fortunately. But yeah, you can also do it with M-Play, like Jesper say, so that worked.
Anything else? How many animators do we have here? A few. Good.
So I'm just wondering, let's say that in the middle of production you decide to introduce a new character into the scene. Can you sort of walk us through how difficult would that be to sort of update every HDA that you already built to sort of add functionality for an additional character, or sort of things regarding to the meta managing of all different characters and all different scenes, and sort of how you could scale this production up to many different shots and things like that?
Yeah, so I think the good part of doing all of that in Houdini is that the pipeline is extremely simple. So when I publish a rig, it's just written out to a BGO, and I have this rig loader that Jesper showed, which is basically just a file sub and the Apex add character node and merge together. So there's really nothing to it to add a character, and it just works in the scene animate. It will keep your old stuff and it will just add a new character, and yeah, that's basically it. It was extremely quick to set up. And of course, in your studio, probably you have a lot of pipeline tools, but that's more just where to store that BGO file and how to version it. Hopefully answer your question.
Yeah, sure. Also, if how can we get our hands on one of those Dua Lipa Houdini shirts?
That would be for Chris to answer.
He's like, I'm not telling you. This is my secret stash.
I think his cousin is friends with Dua Lipa, right? No.
Any other questions? Dua Lipa related? Thank you.
Hi. So it was really interesting when you showed the skeleton deformer, but I didn't really understand how it works. Like, is it jiggle the bones or the joint Like, I mean, if I have a realistic character on I don't know, a motorcycle, and I wanted to have some jiggle on it, I will select the joint that I want to be to have the jiggle physics. That's how it works.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So
basically,
it's that simple.
Yeah. Okay. So you can also make joint groups, I guess. Did you have something to add?
I'll bring it up. Thank you.
So there's two HDAs that were used in basically the fancier HDA that Magnus made that I've been using forever. One is the Jiggler one, which under the hood, under the hood it's using chops to do the jiggle stuff. So it's just running all the geo through the chop net, and then it's running it over like the translation of the points and jiggling that, and then Magnus set it up to also update the rotations as well. But that one's using chops. The rig noise one, which is like adding sort of the stay alive stuff that Jesper was talking about, that is something that was built in KineFX. It's using like a rig vop and a curl noise just to rotate joints and stuff. I can share those HDAs with you guys or whoever. I have a tutorial I made on all that stuff also on my YouTube page. But I also hope at some point that like Side Effects Labs or someone makes a better version of them, because mine are pretty janky. But then Magnus, took those and put them in the easier to use version. That I don't know if you want to add anything else to that, but on top of all that stuff, there's like the KineFX smooth motion node. There's the secondary animation node. There's all these other ones. And I just want to get more and more of those. And again, hopefully we see that stuff come to like channel prims and Apex and can be more accessible to animators over time. But having that stuff has been really fun just for me to mess around with in my, janky KineFX rigs for the last couple of years and make really quick, fun little things. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It was totally, we just ripped off Chris's old HDAs and made a procedural setup. But yeah, it's the HDAs that Jesper showed will be available on the content library as well when the film is out. And it's all done in chops. So a bunch of nodes in chops and exported the parameters to the HDA. Yeah.
Push.
Yeah, I'm just wondering with the animation editor improvements and changes and things like that, and the animation layers, and is there any other things you'd like to see in the future, or is there any frustrations you had, things that were problematic?
I mean, we were beta testing this new version, so there was a lot of frustrations, and a lot of it has been fixed now, of course. But I think for the future, as I said, like a post library would be really, really nice. Also having that integration with some of these HDAs to make it kind of just be part of that scene animate, so that people like me don't have to mess around with nodes so much. That would be really nice. The old post library is certainly super powerful. So looking forward to seeing that. That'll be great. Yeah, and other than that, like we're gonna keep working on this movie, obviously when we get back, and I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of things once I also start to realize what kind of stuff I might need, and I'll let them know. Oh, beautiful, great, thanks.
Anyone else? Right. Going once, going twice. Okay. Thanks very much, guys. Amazing.